I'm Niamh, Director of Poetry Ireland, Eagsha Éireann. You're all really welcome to Poetrytown Dublin 1's unveiling event, and thank you for joining us. I just want to start by talking a little bit about Poetrytown, and also I need to thank a couple of people. So Poetrytown is an initiative of Poetry Ireland in partnership with arts officers in each local authority. And the project has been made possible through the open call funding from the Arts Council, as well as receiving additional support from the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. And this is Poetrytown's first year. And what it is in its simplest terms is it's a celebration of poetry and a celebration of people. So we have 20 towns and 20 laureates with well over 150 events and activities in the coming 10 days across the country. The aim of Poetrytown is to focus attention on smaller rural towns and to celebrate the vitality, creativity, and energy that exists in those towns. And what we wanted to do is to truly look and value the artists, the places, the spaces, and the communities that don't always get the attention that they should or the attention that they deserve. So we've been really determined to highlight not just the talent, but the strength of the towns. And we've done that by assembling amazing laureates and planning events that we believe, or at least we hope, reflects the diversity of the artists and communities around the country. So if you haven't already, could you please look up the website, poetrytown.ie, and see if you can get involved in as many events as you can. So I want to say a huge thank you to one and all of our laureates, but also to the arts officers, to our national coordinators, Liam Bell and Conal O'Rian, the the unbelievable local coordinators in each town who are and have been amazing, to the Poetry Ireland team, to the board, and to absolutely every single one of the artists and people who are doing something in, for, or throughout the 10 days. Thank you. And you've made this massive project possible, and you really have made it worthwhile. So tonight, here and now, we have a delight of artists. We have our amazing laureate, Rachael Hegarty, our poet in residence, Ann Cullen, writer and poet Rosaleen McDonagh, and poet Martin Riley. So I'm going to stop talking, but I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to a woman who really doesn't need any introducing. It's Paula Meehan. Paula has several award-winning poetry collections. She's written plays for both adults and children, and she's conducted residencies in universities, in prisons, and in wider community groups. And her poems and plays have been translated into so many different languages. She's also a member of our board, and I will hand you over to her now. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure for me to join in the celebration tonight of Rachael Hegarty's appointment as the very first Poet Laureate for Dublin 1. It's an area that has deep resonance for myself, where I got language first, where I spent my childhood, and my affection for the area is enhanced by this wonderful appointment. I first met Rachael over 30 years ago in, of all places, the Brendan Behan Bar in Jamaica Plains in Boston. She was studying there. She was one of that generation who took the plane off on the wings, and it's our great good fortune that she came home to study in Trinity, where she received a master's in philosophy, in creative writing, and later she was one of that gifted generation of students who worked up in the Seamus Heaney Centre in Belfast with the sadly late great Belfast poet Kieran Carson. So the laureateship is a fantastic initiative of Poetry Ireland, and it really is a period of intense focus on poetry and what it can offer to the communities. Rachael, when I met her, I knew she was a born poet. I knew by the kind of questions she asked me about poetry, the kind of curiosity she had about how poems are made. She served a long and distinguished apprenticeship in her craft. Her first book, Flight Paths Over Finglas, was a fantastic exploration of growing up in Finglas, though her taproot goes back into Buckingham Street in the centre of Dublin 1. Her childhood and teenage years, her maybe misspent teenage years, were in the wilds of Finglas. That first book won the Shine Strong Award, given for an outstanding first collection of poetry. Her second book, Mayday 1974, was a revival, if you like, of those who had lost their lives in the Dublin Monaghan bombings. She herself, with her mother and a younger child in a pram, were survivors of that bombing, and they escaped by the skin of their teeth, as we say, with their lives. It was a marvellous resuscitation of the lives of those who perished, and it was a plea in its way for justice for those people who are still, the families of those people who are still seeking justice for their loved ones. Her new book, which will be launched on the autumn equinox on the 21st of September, is a monument and memorial to her mother. Her mother was a seamstress and she loved to dance. She has been on the Alzheimer's journey for a number of years now, and that's why the 21st of September was chosen for the launch date, because it's International Alzheimer's Day. Rachael's deep understanding of her mother's struggles. Rachael was the youngest of 10 children, and she was a witness to the daily grind of raising an amazing family, many of whom have taken the plane to the United States. So in many ways, Rachael's laureateship will focus a lot of attention on the people of the area, a lot of attention on the celebration of the people of the area, and also will open doors to those who have an interest or a yearning to make poems of their own. It'll be an intense period of workshops, readings, and other projects that will celebrate poetry and all it has to offer the people of the area. I wish her all the best. She's a dear friend of mine. She's enriched my life. She's enriched so many other lives of this part of the city and beyond. In her work as a teacher in the Trinity Access Programme, she's nourished many of the young students and mature students of Dublin 1 in that amazing programme in Trinity, which allows pioneers, the children of disadvantaged areas, the pioneers, to come in and sometimes be the first people in their families and in their communities to receive a third level education. She's an outstanding educator, a marvellous, wonderful poet, and I know you all join me this evening to embrace her and to give her all our best wishes for a successful laureateship.
Hello, my name is Rachael Hegarty and I'm the Poet Laureate of Dublin 1. I've just been listening to Paula Meehan and all I can think of is follow that, says you. Thank you so much, Paula Meehan. You are a true mentor and an amazing poet and woman. So when I became the Poet Laureate of Dublin 1, I told my ma and she was like, Poet Laureate about Dublin 1, what do you do there? And I was like, well, I go out into the community and I do some workshops and then I have to write a poem about Dublin 1. And my ma was like, oh, Dublin 1, number 4 Buckingham Street, flat 3. And I was like, yes, ma'am, number 4, Buckingham Street, flat 3. She goes, that's good now, love. And then she pauses and looks up at me from under her eyebrows and says, you can write your poem, but just make sure it rhymes this time, won't you? So here goes, Ma. I read this poem for my Ma, for all the Ma's everywhere, and for Dublin 1, our motherland. Ode to Dublin 1. See the sunrise sail up the Liffey's lane, like swans gliding on a watery plain. Smell how morning dew marries the sea air, as a binman kisses his baby's hair. Touch the bullet holes at the GPO, while our past, present, and future go slow. Hear children play in playgrounds on the hill, Mountjoy or Sean Macker for the pure thrill. Parnell Street boasts food from other places, lovely tastes, old cultures, and new faces. Ramble art at the U Lane Gallery. It's free, no matter your salary. Listen to poems at Poetry Ireland or a Henry Street busker's Song Island. Then watch the players on the Abbey stage, stories of us to engage or enrage. R. Kelly brings home the Olympic gold, harnesses a fighting spirit of old. Footballers delight those on Hill 16, so many in a row, never before seen. The travellers who stop by Pavey Point, Our Lady of the Wayside will anoint. And evenings on Capel Street can be bliss. A few jars, music, dance, maybe a kiss. An urban fox sniffs Moor Street for some grub. Seagulls squawk like revellers at a nightclub. Badgers come from beneath hawthorn hedges. A heron guards the Royal Canal's edges. Look, it's not all the Garden of Eden. Yeah, our town thrives, resists, beyond beaten. Stall at Summerhill. Watch the setting sun. A honeyed sky shines over our Dublin 1. Thanks very much. And so myself and the husband, we also had our first home in Dublin 1. Our home was in 14 Healy Street, and our 2 kids were born there, 2 sons, and they went to play school there in LYCS. Great fun times. But what I loved about Summerhill, and even still, you'll see kids playing rope swings on the lampposts. I love that game, and I used to play it myself. So I wrote this poem while I was living in Dublin Hill, partly because my grandfather is a doctor, and partly because I played rope swings. But I also dedicate this to Paula Meehan, herself, and Rio and Tio are great fun and great crack, and have been true friends to me and mine. Spring on Summerhill. A birthright of all dockers' children. We learn to fly. Gleanings from a grandfather's shed, the dock robes coil out. Boys hoist one another up lampposts. Girls pull and hoop thick hemp. For once, they work together quietly, making ready for a flight of fancy. 3 girls, 2 boys, 5 swings on the neck of a Dublin street light. A dash of shoes for 1 spin of the post. Lift your feet. Trust the air. I loved living in Summerhill. It was the crack. So as Paula said, myself, my ma, and my brother Davy were in town on the 17th of May 1974. We had been in Guineas. My ma went to get tea towels and terry cloth nappies. We left Guineas and there was a loud bang. And I remember a fella in a suit looking up at the sky, and I'd never seen a fella in the suit looking at the sky. And then there was another closer loud bang that hurt my ears, and I knew we were in trouble when my ma dropped her messages and threw me into the pram on top of my brother David. By the end of that day, there'd been two bombs, one on Parnell Street, one on Talbot Street, another on Leinster Street, and then that was on beside Trinity, and then another up in Monaghan Town. So there was 33 people dead that day. We just got lucky. But people are still seeking justice. And when I read the Barron report, I read the victims only got 3 lines saying their name, their age, and their occupation. And I felt they needed more. So I decided that I'd look at statements from family members in the public realm or on YouTube or another Oireachtas reports or sometimes the coroner's reports and make them into sonnets. And then I would also craft a ballad for each of the people who lost their lives that day. So this is for the O'Brien family, John O'Brien, Anna O'Brien, Jacqueline and Anne-Marie. They're 2 very small children. They died, the whole family died on Parnell Street. And this is their sister's statement. Alice O'Brien's statement to the Oireachtas public hearings on the Barron report, the 20th of the 1st, 2004. My name is Alice O'Brien. I lost my sister, her husband and their 2 children in the 1974 bombing on Parnell Street. My sister was 22 years old, Jacqueline was 17 months, and the baby Anne-Marie was only 5 months. They lived around the corner from Parnell Street on Gardner Street. My aunt lived across from Anna. She alerted the house in Finglas that Anna had not come home all night. Paddy Doyle, my father, and my mother's sister, Christine Conroy, went to the mortuary. My dad identified Jacqueline and Anna and Marie because they were the only 2 babies killed. But he could not identify our Anna at all. He identified Johnny by a tattoo on his arm that said Anna and Johnny. Anna was identified when my auntie Christine recognised my sister's earring. Ballad for Anna O'Brien. What I miss about Finglas are the trees by the Tulka. The river made the valley and the valley gave us trees. When the priest in Gardner Street drones on, I mouth me prayers like the others, but really, I'd be back by the Tulka, walking the trail of trees in me head. I hear me granny's voice, soft whisperings over the rattle of rosaries, and her telling me trees never sin. She names off the trees and their markers, the willow with its weeping limbs, the ash and its papery bark, the oak's sturdy trunk and tiny toppers, and the hazel with its nuts for hungry gaps. When the time comes, I'll show our girls the markers for different kinds of trees. I'll take them to the elder where me and John carved out our names when we was courting. They likely laugh at us, ones, once young, and carving love on a tree by the Tulka. I read that for all of those people who died that day, and for my students, some of the students at Parnell CDETB, where I've worked for the last 20 years, and the TAP Access Programme come from places like Somalia and Afghanistan and Syria. In fact, I only met 2 students on Monday, one from Somalia and one from Afghanistan. And while the bombs were stopped here in this island, Twitchwood, there are still bombs in other places, and I hope it stops for those countries soon too. So as Paula mentioned, the 3rd book is for me ma. It's a little ballroom, a memory for her to go dancing in. She kind of knew she was losing her memory, and she said to me when I lost my memory key, my little USB key, and we were looking for it, she goes, "There's a key for memory." I said, "There is, ma'am." She says, "I don't have to worry about that. You be my memory key." And so we started to talk about our memories all around dancing, and that's where the book came from. So this last year and a half has been hard for so many reasons, but I really miss dancing. I miss dancing. I love dancing in the kitchen with my husband for the slow set. I love having a dance off with my sons in the kitchen, but I really want to go dancing with randomers in a dance hall, at a disco, in a field. I don't care. I love the dancing. But this poem is about a different dance hall called the Iron, which is on Parnell Square as well. And it's where my ma and dad met. And this is this story, the Iron, 1955. Girls preened one side, Boys jostled the other. Giddiness twirled out of new homemade frocks. London dress patterns stepped out in Dublin. Cottons, taffetas, or silks with tulle slips. Lads with hair brill creamed into a duck's arse. Shirts with skinny ties, cool pinstriped mod suits, good leather shoes, all spit, polish, and shine. The whole hall honking of dressed up hormones. Your dad asked me to dance, wouldn't let go, save to get me a soft drink between the sets. I liked his easy way. He made me jive, knees high and low. He didn't drop the hand. We moved well together, fast and then slow. We danced all night, our faces all aglow. Bring back the dancing, says you. I'd like to thank Poetry Ireland. I'd like to thank Niamh and Katie and Elizabeth. You're doing amazing work. I think this whole Poetrytown thing is absolutely deadly. I think it's amazing that you think Dublin 1 is a rural town, but I get what you're saying. There are rural aspects of it. Everybody knows everybody, and you can't get away with anything. It does have that part. It is such an amazing honor to be on this platform with other people such as Rosaleen McDonagh and Martin Riley and Catherine Ann Cullen, and of course the wonderful Glenn Hansard. I think it's great. It's great that we can do this crack again. So I'm going to read this book. People ask me, did I grow up in a house with loads of poetry books? I didn't. I grew up in a house, the 11 people, all of us all together. We lost one brother, John, but I grew up in a house with 9 kids and 8 bunk beds and a man, Dal, who had lots and lots of song. So I'll read this poem for all the people who love singing and belting out songs, and with a big thanks for Glenn, who's going to finish out tonight's gig with a great rendition of The Rocky Road, and also thanks for Catherine Ann. She's going to be singing a few songs as well, part of her thing. So this is it, the song map. Late at night, we hear folks sing of women. A wheel ya, wheel ya. Of men behind bars gone mad with the jingle jangle of an L triangle. Da belts out his dream of Joe Hill. Ma keens over the foggy dew. We learn the song map of our small island via the landmarks of mangled hearts. In town, on Raglan Road, out the country, down by the Sally Gardens. Lovely buckety words, feral jigs, and lonesome airs haunt our heads. We are lulled, fall asleep, top and tail siblings in rickety bunk beds. Thanks for listening to me. So you're in for a mad treat next. We have the lovely, amazing Dr. Rosaleen McDonagh. Rosaleen McDonagh hails from County Sligo. She is a traveller woman with a disability. She was born 4th of 20 children, so that's some go. She worked in Pavey Point, helping in a campaign to stop violence against women. She is an amazing writer. She has written plays and poems. She has been a resident writer in Adelaide, Australia, a resident writer in Portland, Oregon. I heard Rosaleen read on Women's Day in 2020, just before things got absolutely crazy, and she read a poem that nearly lifted the roof off Poetry Ireland. Last week, myself and himself watched her play at the Abbey, Windows and Doors, and that just nearly made us want to go out and make radical changes left, right and centre for traveller communities and non-traveller communities, thinking what we could do. We all joined forces. So Rosaleen's doing great work. She has like a BA in theology, 2 masters from Trinity, 1 in creative writing, another in race and ethnicity, and then she went off and got her doctorate in Northumbria, like you do now. So you're in for a treat to hear her. Alongside with her, you'll be hearing an amazing young Martin Riley, a new poet. He works as a men's mental health worker at Pavy Point, and he is working to help. He's a young man helping other young men with mental health issues and trying to do something about the awful high rate of suicide among young traveller men. But also I just heard his poems, and he crafts poems that like do the Heaney trick of catch the heart off guard and make you think. So I'll hand you over to Rosaleen McDonagh and the wonderful Martin Riley. Thanks very much for listening to me. All the best. Yup, Poetrytown and yup, Dublin 1.
No, I'm not your knacker or your dark Rosaline. That word, that connotation, think of the old description from an earlier world, the world of slaughter, where the bandjacks were relegated to redundancy. Ethnos, the idiom, ethnic cleansing, slow and torturous, undertones and brutality, ridicule, cruel intention, connotations, history, context. Audre Lorde said, "We were not meant to survive." Now, the traveller evaporates and the knacker remains.
Gloak. Child is woken. Excitement rises. Child is about 4 or 5 now. His mother's boy. Eats his breakfast and asks what it would be like today in his first day in junior infants. The whole summer seemed to lead to this moment. His parents look on with pride. His face is washed and his uniform is ironed. He leaves the family home. Across the grassy land that protects him through the gates. Sees all the children with the same worry and excitement on their face. It quickly becomes his new favourite place. Years go by and the schoolwork is getting harder, and for the first time he's now classed as a traveller. What's that, he asks. It's what you are, says the kid in the yard. It's why you're different to me. But he doesn't seem different as far as the young boy could see. So he goes back to his home, waits until he's with his parents all alone and asks, am I a traveller? Of course you are, son. What does that mean? It means you come from a very exclusive ethnic minority. We're different than the general population. Our traditions have been passed down through time and generations. We used to roam the country helping the locals, and we did it with pride. Even during the famine, we had skills to survive. We're good with our hands, hard workers that could tile any land. We can fix anything that's broken, and we're good with the yarns. We're a real close community, where the most important thing is family, and that's why you're so important to us. Child smiles and he feels special. Goes to school and soon there's a turn in his table. Kid shouts, you're not special, you're scum. I'm not allowed to play with you. My ma told me where you're from. Child stands alone, not sure what he's done wrong. He grows up, starts to see other inequalities. Like, why is it only travellers that have to live at the edge of a motorway? And why isn't there running water on his side? He was taught in school that this was a basic human right, just like sanitation. But there's no toilets on his side either. Just 4 portaloos between over 50 people. If this happened to anyone else in Ireland, it'd be classified as evil. So why is it okay for travellers? His grandfather blames the politicians, says them who've promoted the vile segregation. Teaches of the 1963 Commission, how he labelled the forced settling of travellers as the final solution. Taught them how it's the people outside that strive to make them different. That's why they insult with names like pikey, knacker, and itinerant. This is why he's stuck between a motorway and a wasted land of barren land separated by spiked railings so travellers understand that they're not welcome here. It's why travellers feature last when it comes to public planning, even though there's mass overcrowding, why the council's funds for travellers are given back almost every single time. It's not why no one listened through the flames of the tragedy of Carrick Mines. It's why some politicians have celebrated when they kept travellers out. If you don't believe it, just look at Dublin South, or even check around the country and listen to the words that comes from some politicians or even judges' mouths. Beasts, Neanderthals. How is this allowed? Hate speech at any other time is called out, but not now. His father teaches him that it didn't start here. You don't have to go back many years to see schoolyards divided with a yellow line. Most of the school playing normally with travellers separated on the other side, or special classes for travellers. And it didn't matter whether the child was doing well in school at the time. Segregation. That slowly sleeps into the subconscious mind of the nation. A lifetime of clear device that makes sure you don't rise above your station. He's angry now and feel more isolated. Why is his birth a reason for hatred? Grows older, reads as much as he can, reads comment sections online, sees that people blame travellers for drugs and crime and call them lazy. That seems crazy. Travellers were always known for their hard work, and yeah, there's crime, but that's across all society. Why do people only focus on this and not the positive parts of his community? He grows up, learns that he'll have to pretend to be different if he wants the equal rights. Travellers are scum. They smash up places and fight. He's never wrecked anywhere in his life. He was brought up with an incredible sense of pride, but having to deny who he is leaves him feeling empty inside. I'm sorry, I don't serve your kind. Why? You're a traveller, mate. No, I'm just up from the country for the day. Are you up for the match? Yeah, something like that. These lies of a lifetime hard to comprehend. Why do we have to live with this shame, especially when he's done nothing wrong, to chip away at his self-worth? He lived a lifetime of pain and a lifetime of hurt. All he ever wanted was to be accepted, but nothing in his life ever let him. He feels segregated, castigated, degraded and hated. Even parts of his own government cease to be okay with this. Why is there hope for when there's no hope left? How can you see the light when your life has been spent in darkness? Years later, a study is done. Comparing travellers to the general population shows suicide is 7 times more prevalent in traveller men and 5 times more in women. Some people start to take notice. They want to know how has it come to this. He's brought in front of them. They ask him for reasons. He stands there quietly, states that he doesn't have all the answers. All he has is this story.
Hello, I'm Catherine Ann Cullen, poet in residence at Poetry Ireland, and I'm just blown away by listening to Martin Riley and my friend Rosaleen McDonagh there. Rosaleen has a wonderful book just out, Unsettled, and it is an unsettling book and everybody should read it. And I know Martin has a lovely project online, Pavy Roads, so check it out. And it's wonderful to be part of, to have Pavy Point in Dublin 1 and to have them part of Poetry Ireland 2. I'm going to celebrate both Rachael and congratulations to Rachael on her appointment as Poet Laureate of Dublin 1. I can't think of a better person, and that was lovely reading as well, Rachael. Really enjoyed it. I'm going to celebrate Rachael and some of the other great women in Dublin 1. And first up, I'm going to sing a song which I wrote. I wrote a series of poems and songs about artifacts in the North Inner City folklore project collected by Terry Fagan. And this is really a kind of a tenement archive and an archive of working class life over the last kind of 100 years there. And so this song is about the messenger belt that's there. It belongs to Molly O'Reilly from Gardner Street. And Rachel was singing about was reading about Summerhill there. Gardner Hill is there. And she was one of the youngest women involved in the 1916 Rising. She was radicalized at the age of about 11 or 12 when she went to Liberty Hall to learn how to dance. So this is Messenger Belt. I was sent to learn dancing at Liberty Hall, but Jim Connolly's talk sent me reeling, for my home stomping ground of the tenement sprawl needed more than mere towing and healing. Now they ask who's the brat who's so light on her feet, whose dancing rings round them whenever we meet. I'm Molly O'Reilly from Gardner Street. If anyone asks, who goes there? Die, 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 die. Jim gave me the gift of a messenger pouch on a brown leather belt with a buckle, for he saw at the sidestep that I was no slouch, and to union nor crown I'd not truckle. With the belt on my hip I could run hell for leather. God knows our poor army was cobbled together. But I gave the peelers a bit of owl blether if ever they asked, who goes there? Die, 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 die. A soup kitchen queen by the age of 13, a firebrand with rifles to smuggle, unfurling the flag, the uncrowned harp on green, on the eve of the Easter week struggle. Then from pillar to post as the bombs smoked the air, I ran rebel notes on a wing and a prayer. I'm Molly O'Reilly, the devil may care if anyone asks, who goes there? Yes, I'm Molly O'Reilly, the Summerhill hare. If anyone asks, who goes there? Da 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 da. Who goes there? So that's Molly. And I have another poem about an artifact in the North Inner City Folklore Project. And it's the artifact is a cross that was made for a prostitute when she was dying there. And I suppose the poem is also about the hypocrisy of the church and the state at the time, contrasted with the kindness of the local people around Margaret Carroll. So this is called Monto Cross. As she lay dying in the joiner's tenement, the priest disdained to bless her, for Margaret Carroll had once whacked a man with a poker when he wouldn't cough up. You could makeshift a cross from twigs and string, but the joiner trawled the dockyard for 2 scantlings of wood, chiselled from each a rebate so they sat snug together. He lacquered his work with thin paint till it was quite respectable. When he got home, the daughter who'd been taken from her was at her side. Margaret had no strength left, but the cross was lighter than air, lighter than any air in the choke of the Gloucester diamond. She clutched it with the hands she had held up for her prison photograph. It was black as a brothel poker, black as she was painted, black as the chemise a judge had once given his favourite girl. So that's the Monto Cross. Rachel has a wonderful collection about the May 1974 bombings in Dublin, as you heard there. This is a poem that I wrote about one of the survivors of the bombing, Wendy Doherty, who was a toddler when her mother, who was 9 months pregnant at the time, was killed in the bombing. And Wendy was found wandering around Talbot Street after the bombing. I imagine that she was holding onto her mother's hand till the very last minute. And I always thought that was a very, very upsetting story to think about. So this is called Traces. A toddler strays into the grey evening, confident that the familiar hand would float up again to anchor her fingers. Those she passes shake off their own days to retrieve her from the edge of vision before she too vanishes in the sudden night. The stars explode in a new pattern. They map a pilgrimage where we trace and retrace the steps of the lost, feel for uncertain markers. Where did their hands last touch? Maybe here, where Mammy stood admiring a pastel swathe of baby clothes in Guinea's window, 9 months gone, but not buying yet, for luck. We walk unsteadily, picking our way past a twisted bike, a skeleton car, staring through shattered windows. And that's Wendy Doherty. I have another poem about a great woman from Dublin 1, Rosie Hackett, who finally had a bridge named after her across the Liffey, the first woman to have a Liffey bridge called after her. This is a sonnet that I wrote for Rosie, and it's called Naming a Bridge. To make a bridge, you first must see the gap, then fling yourself full length across the space, like Rosie Hackett did for 60 years, the factory girl who did not know her place. Ah, Rosie knew that place and all its wrongs, the 60-hour week on the factory floor, the union badge that barred you from your work, the strike turned back upon the locked out poor. Her life's 3 struggles forged one steely frame, the fight for women, workers, plow. She raised a rebel banner from a roof. For workers' holidays, she raised a row. A name so nearly lost, now set in stone. To name this bridge reclaims her for her own. That's Rosie Hackett. Just wanted to say it was fantastic to hear the Dublin 1 Poet Laureate poem as well. And that's the first time I've heard it, and most people have heard it. And just really, really lovely, Rachel. Lovely work. I'm going to finish my part with another song. This is a song that I wrote with some of the girls, the primary school girls from Dublin 1, from St. Vincent's School up on the North Strand. I was talking to them about the history of the area and how often names retain something about an area that's lost. And that's the case with the North Strand, because that used to be an actual strand, a sand. And the girls were really, really taken with this lovely idea that there was a sand right outside their door at one time. And we wrote this song called North Strand Shanty. And we put as many women as we could into it, because shanties usually have men in them. So we decided we were going to strike a blow for women. And I wrote this with the girls and with Imogen Gunner, who's musician and a great friend of mine too. So I'm just going to move that down one. This is North Strand Shanty. Do you know the North Strand? Well, it used to be a sand with shiny seaweed on the ground, where the Queen of the Sea sang her shanty just for me, with the mermaids swimming all around. Me girls with the mermaids swimming all around. And it's oh, row, take my hand, we'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand, with the mermaids swimming, 'cause they're fishy wishy women. We'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand. Imagine you could float to Marino in a boat and maybe catch a mackerel as he flips. You can still see a shark now and then in Fairview Park, but your fish comes with a bag of chips. Me girls, but your fish comes with a bag of chips. And it's oh, row, take my hand, we'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand, eating fish and chips and looking out for pirate ships. We'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand. Where there used to be a bay, sure they filled it in with clay, for Dublin city spreading wide. But you might meet a ghost who thinks she's on the coast, and Molly's working on the tide. Me girls picking cockles and mussels on the tide. And it's all road, take my hand. We'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand. With Molly picking muscles where the busy traffic bustles. We'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand. We'll paddle in our dreams down the old North Strand. So that's the North Strand shanty, and I'm glad to get that out of the way because there's another singer coming up, and I'm just glad I'm on before him. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. It was just gorgeous to see everybody, and it was lovely to be part of this. Congratulations again to all the laureates of Poetrytown, and especially to our own Dublin 1 laureate, Rachael Hegarty. And coming up now is a special treat. It's Glenn Hansard singing Rocky Road to Dublin. Have a lovely evening.
Okay, Rachel. 'Twas in the merry month of June, from home I started, kissed the girls from June and left them broken hearted. Saluted me father dear, kissed me darling mother, drank a pint of beer, my fears and doubts to smother, enough to reap the corn, leave where I was born, cut the stout black thorn to banish ghosts and goblins, brand new pair of brogues, rattled over the bogs, frightened all the dogs, on the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to Dublin, whack, fal-dal-dee-da. And Mullingar that night, a rested limbs so weary, started that daylight next morning bright and airy, took a drop of the pure to keep me heart from sinking, that's the paddy's cure, when Airy's on for dricket to see the lassie smile, laughing all the while, at me curious style would set your heart a wobbling, that I was hired, wages I required, till I almost tired of the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to Dublin, whack, fal-dal-dee-da. To Dublin next arrived, I thought it such a pity to be so soon deprived of view of that fine city, so there I took a stroll, out among the quality, me bundle it was stole, in a neat locality something crossed me mind, when I looked behind no bundle could I find, upon me stick a wobbling inquiring after the rogue, said me Connacht brogue wasn't much in vogue, on the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to Dublin, whack, fal-dal-dee-da. From there I got away, me spirits never failing, made it to the quay just as the ship was sailing. The captain at me roared, said no room had he there. I jumped aboard a cab and found for Paddy down among the pigs, played some hearty rigs, did some hearty jigs, the water round me bubbling off the Holyhead, wished myself for dead up at the fire instead, on the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to Dublin, whack, fal-dal-dee-da. The boys from Liverpool, when we safely landed, called myself a fool. I could no longer stand that, my blood began to boil. Temper I was losing, poor old Erden's oil. They began abusing her, me soul, says I. Let my shillelagh fight, some Galway boys were nigh, saw that I was hobbling with the loud hooray, joined in the affray. We bait them half the way down the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to Dublin, whack, fal-dal-dee-da. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to Dublin, whack, fal-dal-dee-da.